everybody, it's me, Beth Maitland, and we're at DramaQueenBee Quilt Studio. And today I am doing some long arming for a customer of mine, a friend. Debbie Bannerman sent me this adorable black cat quilt. This quilt is, she's made this for a friend, of a relative actually, who has 4 or 5 black cats. So there are 5 rows of 6 cat blocks. So that's 30 different blocks with different fabric, and all of them are the same kind of construction. If you're interested in this pattern, they have this pattern over on Missouri Star Quilt Company's YouTube channel. Jenny Doan does a couple of different tutorials, and it's a pretty easy block to construct, but that's 30 different kitties. And she's picked mostly black fabrics, some with micro prints in the background, some solid black, some sort of specialty fabric based on the interest of the recipient, her family member. And she's asked me to do something a little bit different in every single block. So in the sashing, you can see that what I'm doing is quilting through for you me long arming free motion 1 block. I start in the upper right hand corner of the outside of the gray sashing, and I used my ruler, you'll see it again in just a minute, to help guide my long arm to keep my line nice and straight, and I stitched in the ditch all the way around the outside of the block back to where I started in the upper right hand corner. And then I go immediately into what you see now, which is a ribbon candy design. This is free motioned, and every corner has a little sort of a 3 lump corner to keep that ribbon candy even and going around it all the way around the block. I am trying hard to not have to break thread. That means to not have to pull up my bobbin thread, tie off, and then go back in, pull it up again someplace else, and break the thread. It's a lot faster and it saves a lot of time if I can find a path of my quilting that keeps me from having to break thread. So that's what we're trying to do. And so far we get all the way almost to the very end of this without having to tie off. So now I have finished the ribbon candy, and I need to stitch in the ditch on the inside of the gray sashing. So as you can see, I'm using my ruler right next to the foot of my long arm. You can see better here. I'm using it just to kind of guide my long arm. It reinforces that the stitch in the ditch stays nice and even and straight. I go around every corner, and then I use that. I gently am pushing with the ruler against the foot, and kind of with my hand on one side and the ruler on the other, it keeps that stitch nice and straight, and it keeps it in the ditch where the seam construction is. And it is really a useful little tool, that ruler, to just sort of stabilize everything. Now we're going to outline the shape of the cat. So I'm doing his ears, his head, I'll do his body. And again, trying hard to keep quilting and not have to break thread. We're going to get all the way around the head of the cat, and I'm going to do a little swirl in this white background fabric. Each block has something slightly different in the white background fabric too. She wanted them all to be slightly different, but not too busy, sort of medium density. She didn't want it micro quilted with everything all pushed down, like I would perhaps with a big applique quilt or something. She just wanted it to stay, that stiffens the body of the quilt. She wanted it to stay nice and fluffy and cozy after laundering. So I finished the little thing between the ears, the little background there. So now we're going to finish outlining the cat, and I'm just going to finish with swirls. It's just a meander, kind of curls that are attached to each other, meandering around the white in the background fabric. I'm using a medium gray thread on top, in the gray, in the black, and in the white. And I'm using a black on the bottom because the background fabric is a micro print black with a little white, sort of a triangle element in it. So I'm trying to use thread colors that blend in and don't stick out, so I don't have to keep changing thread colors too, and change to white and all the white, and change to gray and all the gray. It's just easier to find a color that's more neutral and kind of transcends all of the different colors. So we're about to get to the end of this, and I think I do tie off in the corner here because each of the cats has to have something sewn in that too. That needs a little element. So every single cat has something slightly different. Some of them have noses with whiskers and a little mouth. Some of them, everyone has a slightly different tail. Some of them are echo quilted around the entire cat shape. Some of them have hearts and double hearts. The reason is because everything else on the quilt is getting sewn down. If I leave the body of the cat with no quilting, when that's laundered, the fabric will separate. The top and the bottom will puff apart. And we don't want that. We want it to have a similar density to the rest of the quilting so that everything looks from the front and the back after laundering. It all kind of stays down and stays organized. You can see me just doing a little funny curly tail. And that's the end of the adorable cat block. What you can't see up close, don't worry, I'm going to zoom in here in just a second when I finish this block. You can see this block, and then you'll also be able to see a couple of the other blocks next to it. Yep, we did our little curls in the background. You can kind of see his tail, the ribbon candy, and all the sashing. All the backgrounds are slightly different. That's a cat block with Beth Quilting. Thanks for joining me.